Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be talking about padding. So this element has a padding of 70 pixels. So let's just go ahead and see how padding looks. You can see over here the padding is over here. And you can see it's not like margin. It's inside of that element. If I want to be very precise about it. So let's read it to know what it is. The CSS padding properties are used to generate space around an element content inside of any defined border. With CSS, you have full control over the padding. There are properties for setting the padding for each side of an element, and the shorthand property is also there. Padding top sets the top padding of an element, right will set the right padding, bottom will set the bottom padding, and it will set the left padding as well. And all padding properties can have the following values. They can have them in pixels or other units. They can also have them in percentages, and they can also use the inherit property. If you see my last video, you can know what is inherit and how it works. Now let's see what different padding does for. So we're gonna have this one over here. So I'm gonna share this tab and I'm gonna keep it full screen. So you can see over here, it has a padding of top of 50 pixels and the right of 30 pixels, a bottom of 50, and the left padding of 80 pixels. So get a clear understanding of what is padding. The padding will just leave space, but not between elements. Now, in the last video, if you saw about margins, they take the space between two elements. So, but padding is a bit different. You can see over here that it creates space between the elements. So you can see over here that the top has 50 pixels, and the right has 30 pixels, and the bottom has 50 pixels. And the left has 80 pixels. All right. So right now what I'm going to show you guys is what it'll look like if you don't really use these padding. We're going to take them off and we're going to run the program, and you can see here how much difference you can notice that if you're using an element without a padding. All right. So if you use a padding, you can see how much difference that it makes for the element. So it creates the space inside of that element. I'm going to share this tab over here, and you can see that this is a shorthand property. The shorthand property means the first value is going to be top, the second one is going to be for the right, the third one is going to be for the bottom, and the fourth one is going to be for the left. Okay, and if you got three values, then the first value for the top, the second value for the right and the left, and the third value is for the bottom. You got two values. The first one is for the top and bottom, and the next one is for right and left. Okay, so let's talk about the one hand property. So the one hand property will assign all the four sides the same value. Let me show you. So over here we have the div element, and you can see over here this one, 25, 25, and 25, and yeah, this as well, 25. Do not mind these are just the block elements property, but yeah, don't mind them. Right. But if you give text for the entire, like if you give text till here, it does leave a 25 pixel space over here. So I'm going to show you that as well. So for the CSS padding, I'm going to add some text. So I'm going to add this double the times. And let me run the code. And you see over here that you got 25 pixels over here at the left side. Now let's talk about padding and element width. So the width, we already talked about border and the width element. When we use for the, sorry, for the margins and the width element. For the width element, if you specify a width, okay, and then you um try to give borders, okay, um like I mean the margins, if you try to give margins and give it like auto, it will try to leave equal space for the left and the right side. But over here, you can see over here that the div element is given a width of 300 pixels, and however the actual width of the element will be 350 pixels, because it will take the 25 pixels of the left and 25 pixels of the right. Okay, so basically the width will look for 350 pixels. You can see over here that it actually looks a lot bigger because you have added padding. So paddings are for inside of your element, so they're not like outside. So you can see over here that they already created two divs. The first div, the first div is only 300 pixels wide, but the second one is actually 350 because you have given padding, and the padding gets added to your width as well. Okay, so that's what is being mentioned here. So if an element has specified width, the padding will be added to that element, and the total width will be of this 350, which we don't want, That's why we're going to be using something called as box sizing, and we'll talk about this now. Okay, so box sizing is a property and it will define how the width and height of an element are calculated. All right. So of an element should be determined by a width property. Not any other stuff should influence the width that we already specify. For example, you want an element to be 300 pixels, and that is the width that the element should keep. If you want to be very strict, if you want to be very strong, that I want my width of my element to be 300 pixels, it must be 300 pixels. But let's say due to some conditions, it starts to go beyond, due to padding or due to any other things, it started to add more width to that element. So to avoid that, we're going to be using something called as box sizing. Box sizing property will define how the width and height of an element are calculated. Should they include the padding and borders to your calculation of your width or not? So you can see over here, the content box. This is the default. The width and height properties include only the content. Border and padding are not included. The border box. Okay. Here, the width and the height property includes the content, padding, and border. So, to keep the width at 300 pixels, no matter what, how much amount of padding you add, you can use the box size and border box. Okay. This causes the element to maintain its actual width if you increase the padding, and the available content space will increase. Let's try it. I hope you guys understand what I'm talking about. Okay, now I'll also show you guys a div tag. I'll also show you guys another div tag. Okay, and I'm having a padding of 25 pixels, which means for the right, left, as well as the top and the bottom, we'll be having a padding of 25 pixels. In this box sizing, if by default, it's the content box. Okay, where this is the default, where the width and height properties include only the content. Okay. Okay, and I'll create a div, and so I'm just gonna put the same text. I mean, it's just for Oh wait. Okay. I didn't specify the class name. All right. Yeah. Let me just give some more. Let me give a background color as well. Okay. Oh my god. So we don't have like a margin here. So bottom. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's the top. So I'm gonna give top and yeah. There we go. So you can see over here the big difference that I've been talking about. The difference of using border box. You can see that this one is the um extra pixels that was added due to that was added due to the left and the right. Okay. So yeah. Um Left padding, right padding, top and bottom as well. So over here we're gonna drop the set of values to a top padding of 20 pixel, right of 40, and bottom padding of 30, the left of 50. So the first one is gonna be the top. The second one is gonna be the right one. So the right is 40 pixels, and then bottom is 30, and then the left is 50. Let's talk about height and width, which we've been talking about for so long. The CSS height and width properties are used to set the height and width of an element. The CSS max width property is used to set the maximum width of an element. So you can see over here, this element has a height of 70 pixels and a width of 100%. Let's try it. Over here, you can see the height is set to 70 pixels and the width is set to 100%. Let's have a look of what this means when I say 100% of the width. Now I'm going to remove this and we're going to run this to view some of the differences. This is the difference. I'm putting it back on. I don't see any difference. Yeah. Let's go further to know more. CSS set height and width. The height and width properties are used to set the height and width of an element. The height and width do not include padding, borders, or margin. It sets the height and width of the area inside the padding, border, and margin of the element. Okay, so so it doesn't matter whether you have a padding, border, or margin, but it sets the height and width of the area inside of padding, inside of the border, inside of the margin. Okay, so there are also values like auto, length, percentage, initial, inherit can be used over here. So initial will be seen, okay, to its default value. And over here we have an example that this element has a height of 200 pixels and a width of 50%. So over here we're going to convert this into 50. And we're going to see whether we get any difference. And you can see there's a lot of difference over here. And the width of 50%. Now we're going to go ahead and see 20%. And see over here that go 20%. Alright. Right. So you can see over here you can also specify it as a numeric value. The div element has a height of 100 pixels and a width of 500 pixels. And yeah, and um, using max width property, it's going to set maximum allowed width of an element. This will prevent the width of an element to be larger than the max width property. Can have the following rules. They can have the length, they can have percentage, and they can also have none. That means this is default. By default, we do not have any maximum width unless we set a value for it. The one problem that we can have is when the browser window is too small, like smaller than the width of the element, the browser then adds a horizontal scroll bar to the page. So using max width will improve the browser handling on small windows. So we'll talk about that. So over here, you can see over here that when I try to shrink the window of the result, you see that doesn't really do anything for me. So let me adjust this to the max width and then run the code. You can see over here that whenever I try to do it, you can see that there's a lot of difference. See over here. So you see over here that we're going to have a comparison of using the element that has a width of 600 pixels and also a normal one. So you see over here that we're going to try to resize the window to smaller than 500 pixels to see the effect. See over here that it's adding a scroll bar for us to actually view this entire element. So let me remove this max width and let me share with you the difference when we don't use max width. Oh. Okay. You can see the difference. Scroll bar is added, but you can see the difference. All right. Let's talk about this one. A div element with both a width and a max width property. That means which one will take place during which one. The element will try to be 100% of its parent width. That's 100%. But it will never exceed 9 pixels in width. See over here, and a max width of 900 pixels. So we're trying to resize the window larger than 900 pixels wide to see the effect. All right. So you can see over here when I try to go beyond it, but you can see whenever I'm less than 900, see over here, I'm less than 900 pixels, it takes up the 100% of width. But whenever I go beyond 900, you can see here that it only takes up 900 pixels. Okay. So it stays in that same 900 pixels. Now if I remove this and run the program and try to increase the size even beyond 900 pixels, you can see that it is still 100% of the width. But when I set it back, the max width, and run the program, you can see that whenever I go beyond 900, it reminds the width of 900. So whenever it's less than 900, this fast one will take place. And whenever it goes beyond the specified width, this one will take the precedence. All right? So that's what happens when you put them together. All right? Let's go further. Okay, set the height and width. Set the height and width of an image in percentage of an element. Min height, max height. So you can see over here that max height sets the maximum height of an element. That's the minimum width of an element. Min height set the minimum height of the element. Minimum width and width set the width of an element. And height sets the height of the element. Let's try them all out. So we got the min width. So the minimum width that it can have is 100 pixels. Now let's run the code and check it out. You can see over here that when I try to go to minimum of 93, it takes up 100% of the width. Now when I try to move beyond 100, also, it's okay. You see over here, but when I try to, you see over here that it's still there. So let me be more clear with you guys. So let's say, what is the minimum width? The minimum width is 100. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And the maximum width is 900. Okay? So this is the minimum width. And this one is the maximum width. What this specify is that the width of my element will stay the same, will stay 100 if my screen size goes below 100. And it will stay only 900 when my screen size goes beyond 900. Now what happens when they're between these values, like 111 or 112 or 13 or 200 or maybe 700 or 899, what they will be doing? So when the screen size is like 899 or 101, what they will be doing is they will stay at 100% of the width that we set before. 100%. Okay, the one over here, this one. It'll stay 100%. But when the screen size goes below 100, the minimum width will stay 100 pixels. Like it won't change. It will say 100 pixels, not 100%, it's 100 pixels. Now when my screen goes beyond 900, it stays 900. Over here, I've got all of them together. The width to be 100. Oh my god. The width to be 100%. The height to be 100%. Min height is set to 100 pixels. Max height is set to 700 pixels. Max width is 900 pixels and min width is 100 pixels. So over here, you can see over here, I've reached. It's a stable 600. All right. So as my height is stable at 600, and it's not beyond the max height, the height will stay at a min height of 100 pixels. See over here, I try to change this one. Changes. Then I try to change this one. It changes. I'll just remove this. And you can see over here. So what I'm trying to tell over here is the height will try to be there. Like the height will try to not exceed 700 pixels because that's the maximum height. And yeah, that's it. And it won't try to reach the minimum of 100 pixels, even if the window shrinks. So thank you for watching.